What's up, YouTube? This is my first video. Forgive the lack of professionalism slash lighting, but I wanted to get this project off the ground. So I'm calling this channel Mental Martial Arts, and what am I looking to accomplish with this? My goal is really to offer support and inspiration to everyone, really, but I think specifically to people who struggle with mental health issues like depression and anxiety. I think there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I don't think that the people in charge of that content are communicating it in a way to individuals like myself who have struggled with depression. It's very easy for someone to tell you things like, well, just, make a list of your values, get up, get out there and do it, start from the bottom, find motivation. These are all good messages, but when you're in a place where getting out of bed is a feat, it's not that simple to just get up and start chasing your dreams. So I wanted to make this something that all of us can get something out of. Forgive me, I'm looking down at my notebook right now, as I said, first episode. So one of the biggest things is a lot of people out there are considered life coaches. I don't see anything wrong with that. Personally, I would prefer to be seen as a teacher. A teacher offers information that a student can expound upon, extrapolate his own conclusions, take what's useful, discard what's useless. If you're a coach, it implies more to me that there's a clear direction, you're going in that direction, and you have to kind of do what I say. I'm not saying that that's what life coaches are trying to preach. It's just how I feel. So I would like to be considered, be referred to as a teacher if this does take off. Another big thing with this channel, I want to try and break down the stigma surrounding mental illness. I feel that society as a whole has gotten a lot further than we've been in the past, clearly, but I see way too often, and I know people, friends who experience and deal with mental illness as well, there's still a lot of shame surrounding it, and it's not even an issue of just like, oh, I feel ashamed, so I don't want to tell these people. You tell a friend, you tell a relative, and you hit the typical things. Well, you need to get out there more. You need to socialize more. You need to get a job, work more. Just don't think about it. Think positively. All these cliches, it just kind of shows there's no real in-depth understanding of what depression, mental illness, anxiety, other issues I can't even speak to as I've not experienced anything else precluding depression and anxiety. Specifically, I have experienced mania. Technically, my diagnosis is bipolar NOS, which stands for not otherwise specified. From the way I understand it, that essentially means that I don't fit the typical bill of someone who is diagnosed as being bipolar. Someone who is bipolar 1 specifically will deal with highs and lows, the highs being mania, the lows being depression. Mania typically is a feeling of euphoria. Some people can also experience anger. Usually there's irrational behavior associated with that. There could be spending sprees. Really, it's a very inflated sense of confidence, and you feel like you're unstoppable. So very, very much the opposite of depression. So I can speak to that to some degree, although I've only ever had 2 manic episodes in my life. So another thing with the stigma with mental illness, a lot of people out there, even people, again, with mental illness, medication gets a bad rap, let's put it that way. I don't think that if you're feeling depressed, that medication should necessarily be your first line of defense. Now, there are some instances where that is a first line of defense. If you're experiencing psychosis, like I said, if you're manic, if you have symptoms of schizophrenia, something more major like that, then yes, absolutely. Medication is your first line of defense. It is necessary. You need to take it as you're prescribed and directed to take it, and don't just drop it. Again, though, even if you simply have depression and anxiety and you're struggling with it, medication is not a bad thing. I have been on different medications for the last 7 to 8 years. I'm currently on one that has, or on a mixture, I should say, that is proving to be beneficial. And I don't like when I hear things. I've seen certain motivational speakers, self-help gurus, things like that, and these are people that I do look up to and admire and have learned things from. But I'll hear them saying things like in an interview, like, "Oh, well, people just want to turn to pills, and it's happy pills, and who you don't want to have to trust in medication and all that stuff, and blah blah blah." And do we live in a society where medication can be overprescribed or given to someone too soon, or maybe not necessarily? Absolutely. Do we also live in a world where antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, antipsychotics, anticonvulsants, any kind of psychiatric med, where those things are necessary? Yes, we do. So again, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety, try medication. The first one may not work. A lot of times, especially if you have what they would call comorbidity, if I'm using that term correctly, more than one illness, say you have bipolar disorder and also an anxiety disorder, you're going to have to take more than one medication. It's going to complicate things. It's going to take some time. But again, don't try one and give up. Don't take it for a day and think, oh, that's not working, a week, 2 weeks. It's not Advil. You don't feel depressed and then say, well, all right, now I'm going to take my antidepressant and I'll feel better. It has to get in your system. You have to take it regularly. And once it builds up, then you get a little bit more of a level of balance, some clarity. You're able to do more things. Again, point being, medication is not a bad thing. Take it if you need it, absolutely. Try it. Don't be ashamed of it. If someone, a friend, a relative, anyone says something like about your medication, like, oh, well, why can't you do this naturally? Or, oh, do you really need those? Take it with a grain of salt, for one thing. Two, I would say to them, well, if I were diabetic and you saw me taking insulin, would you tell me, do you really need that? If I had high blood pressure, would you tell me not to take a medication that's going to help in lowering my blood pressure? If I'm genetically predisposed to high cholesterol, are you going to say to me, oh, don't take your cholesterol medication, that makes you weak? No. So this idea that medication somehow is always bad or makes you a weak person or whatever is nonsense. Don't buy into that. Don't allow people to dictate how you feel about yourself, as cliche as that sounds. I think a big thing with depression to realize and think about is what stage are you at? That's going to kind of dictate what level of action you need to take. Some people may be at the stage where you're so depressed that you can't get out of bed. Maybe you stay in bed literally all day. The only times you leave is to go to the bathroom, to eat, things like that. So in that instance, if you're in that severe of a state of depression, I would say the level of action you should take, your first goal, or one of your first goals, it could be as small as, well, you know what, I lay in bed all day, so today I'm going to turn on the TV for a half hour, an hour, 10 minutes. Maybe it's something as simple as, all right, well, I lay down all day, so after X amount of time I'm going to sit up. When I was in a severe depression, one of my very first goals was I would lay down all day, I would watch TV, I wouldn't really get up much. So one of the first things I did was, all right, after 4 hours, I'm going to sit up. I'm not going to make myself do anything other than what I'm already doing, watching TV and just kind of existing, but I'm going to sit up. It's very small. It seems very minuscule. I had the problem of telling myself, well, this isn't an accomplishment. This doesn't matter. This is so easy for everyone else, so why should I feel good about it? Don't tell yourself that. It's not about what's easy for everyone else. It's not about what everyone else sees as an accomplishment or a step. If it's a step for you, if it's a step in the right direction, if it's an accomplishment for you, then you're doing the right thing. It doesn't matter what I think, what your parents think, what your girlfriend thinks, what your friends think, your boss, etc., etc. Do what is right for you and be proud of yourself for the small goals. If you walked to the mailbox and that was something that you haven't done in a month, 2 months, 6 months, I don't care what it is, feel good about that. Be like, you know what? I did it. I was depressed. I really didn't want to go outside, but I did it. So again, it's this idea of where am I at with my depression or anxiety, and based upon that, what action should I take to try to progress? You may be at a point where you're doing a little bit better. Maybe you're just kind of at home all day and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd like to go back to school, I'd like to get a job. Then maybe, the first step could be, if you're looking to go back to school, do a Google search, check out schools. You don't have to apply, just take the first step. The first step is what's going to lead to bigger and better things. This video is a first step. This is clearly not a professional setup. My lighting is the sunlight and a lamp. I'm sitting on a floor with a couch as my background. I'm sure the audio isn't great, but I wanted to take this first step because this is something I want to do. This is something I believe in. I think I can help other people who struggle with the things that I've struggled with. So, like I said, take that first step. Maybe this won't go anywhere.